Let's set the scene. I want you to cast your mind back to the early days of the modern internet. It was kind of a wilder frontier back then, right? A place where the boundaries between what was real and what was purely fiction were just starting to get incredibly blurry. Today, we are going to deeply unpack one of the most chilling, meticulously crafted digital campfire stories of our generation. Welcome to This Explainer. We're going to dive into a ghost story that absolutely refused to stay confined to a web page. Instead, it reached right out through the plastic shell of a video game console and completely captivated millions of people. I'm talking, of course, about the sprawling, dark phenomenon known simply as Ben Drowned.
So, I want to ask you a question. What actually happens when our favorite childhood memories become corrupted and start looking back at us? Really think about that for a second. Think about the video games you played as a kid, sitting in the absolute safety of your living room. For an entire generation, Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda series was this profound safe haven. It was a predictable, comforting place filled with heroic quests, very firm rules, and ultimate triumph. You always save the day. But what if those fundamental rules just broke down? What if instead of letting you save the world, the game actively hated you? That core, deeply psychological fear, the sudden, violent corruption of pure nostalgia, is exactly what makes this whole topic so incredibly effective and honestly, just lingeringly unsettling.
Section 1. The Haunted Cartridge. Okay, notice the stark contrast we have here. On one hand, you have a totally normal playthrough of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask from the year 2000. You play as Link, you embark on an epic journey to stop a falling moon, you save the fantasy world of Termina. It's a challenge, sure, but it's safe. Juxtapose that against the absolute nightmare experienced by a college sophomore known online as Jadisable. In early September of 2010, this guy posted a frantic, terrified message on the paranormal board of 4chan. He claimed he'd bought this blank, unlabeled, creepy gray Nintendo 64 cartridge from an unsettling old man at a shady garage sale. You know, classic horror setup. But when he brought it home and booted it up in the dead of night, it had just one single save file on it, and it was simply named Ben. When he tried to play it, the digital world just violently fractured. The comforting music we all know, it played backwards, twisting into these awful, discordant groans. His character would inexplicably contort, burst into flames, or just suddenly drown for literally no reason. And worst of all, there was this eerie, lifeless in-game statue that began relentlessly stalking him. This twisted, smiling husk that mirrored his character, appearing right behind him every single time he turned the camera. Now, Jadisable wasn't just experiencing random glitches. He felt genuinely that he was being hunted by something that was totally aware of him. Documenting his creeping dread, he wrote, "The game obviously isn't through with me. It taunts me with the new save files. It wants me to keep playing." See, in a desperate panic, he actually tried to delete that original Ben save file to just rid himself of the weirdness. But the game fought back. It literally resurrected the deleted file and started generating brand new ones to taunt him, with terrifying names like Your Turn and Drowned. The game environment was directly responding to his real-world actions with clear, malevolent intent. It wasn't a broken piece of code anymore. To him, and to the thousands reading his posts, it was a possessed artifact. The digital tomb for the restless, trapped spirit of a drowned 12-year-old boy.
Section 2. Engineering the Nightmare.
All right, let's totally pull back the curtain here, because the reality is fascinating. This wasn't a real ghost. It was the staggeringly brilliant creation of a college sophomore named Alex Hall. And the sheer speed of his workflow was unbelievable. In roughly a day and a half, Hall engineered the entire first chapter of this terrifying legend totally from scratch. Step 1, he adopted this online persona of a terrified student begging for help on 4chan. Step 2, behind closed doors, he manipulated the game's core code on his computer. Step 3, he recorded this corrupted, nightmarish gameplay and uploaded the raw videos straight to YouTube, presenting them as undeniable, raw evidence. Back in 2010, combining a serialized, spooky tech story with actual visceral video proof was an absolute game-changer for storytelling. It grounded the supernatural right in our tangible reality, making it so incredibly easy for a massive audience to just suspend their disbelief and completely buy into the horror. So how did he actually fake that footage so convincingly? Well, Hall was essentially a digital illusionist, and these were his tools. He used a piece of software called the Project 64 emulator to run a digital copy, a ROM, of Majora's Mask on his PC.
From there, he dug into highly obscure GameShark debugging codes. These specific codes let him completely shatter the natural laws of the game whenever he wanted. He was warping textures into these horrifying shapes, he was forcing animations totally out of sequence, teleporting across the map instantly, and twisting that pleasant audio into unrecognizable nightmares. And through hours of painstaking trial and error, plus some incredibly clever video editing to hide the seams, he literally weaponized the game's own code against the viewer. He made a piece of software look like it was actively thinking, plotting, and reacting in real time.
Section 3. Anatomy of Glitch Horror.
To truly grasp why Ben Drowned had such a massive, explosive impact, we really need to look at the psychological trigger it pulls. Scholars call this glitch horror. Basically, it's a subgenre of horror that expertly exploits our modern collective anxieties about the fallibility of digital technology. Think about how much implicit trust we put into our devices every single day. But we also know that icy, sinking feeling in the pit of our stomachs when a screen suddenly freezes, or a vital work file corrupts, or years of photos are just inexplicably lost to the void. Glitch horror takes that mundane, everyday tech anxiety and twists it, asking a really uncomfortable question. What if that glitch isn't an accident? What if the machine is failing because something malicious is actually inside it? HAL managed to perfectly capture that deep-seated terror of a vital system suddenly spinning completely out of our control.
It's so effective that academic researchers actually study the Ben Drowned phenomenon. They point directly to Sigmund Freud's concept of the uncanny. You know, that highly specific creeping dread you feel when something is deeply familiar, but just slightly horribly wrong. HAL achieved this perfectly by constantly using that in-game Elegy of Emptiness statue. In the normal game, it's just a puzzle-solving tool, a literal wooden copy of Link. But HAL entirely recontextualized it. With its dead, unblinking eyes and that fixed, unnatural smile, the statue drops the viewer straight into the uncanny valley. It looks almost human, it looks almost familiar, but its absolute lifelessness triggers this primal alarm bell deep in our lizard brains. It's this approximation of life behaving like a living entity, just standing perfectly still while exuding pure menace.
And all of this specific dread leads us to a really profound thematic metaphor. Listen to this observation from an academic journal analyzing the story. Quote, "Haunted cartridge narratives elucidate unsettling ambiguities between data and spirit, save files and human identity." End quote. I mean, think deeply about what a save file actually is in a video game. It's a precise digital record of your actions, your choices, the literal time from your life that you spent in that world. In the dark lore of Ben Drowned, a simple save file becomes something way more sinister. It becomes a digital purgatory. It mirrors the human body and soul. The plastic cartridge is the physical body, and that fragile data inside is the spirit, vulnerable to possession and endless corruption. If our data is our identity, then being trapped in a corrupted, glitching loop forever, that is the ultimate modern nightmare.
Section 4. The alternate reality.
Tracing the history of this phenomenon reveals a massive 10-year timeline. See, the Legend of Ben Drowned wasn't just a short, spooky story you read once and forgot about. It violently evolved into this sprawling alternate reality game, or an REG, that spans an entire decade. It started back in 2010 with that claustrophobic haunted cartridge arc we just talked about, but it didn't stop there. The malicious entity supposedly broke right out of the game and infected Jadisable's actual computer, hijacking his YouTube channel and directing thousands of terrified fans to these hidden cryptic websites. That kicked off the 2011 Moonchildren arc. Then, after a massive hiatus, HAL actually returned during the pandemic in 2020 with the Awakening arc, finally wrapping up a decade of incredibly dense lore. It literally grew into a living, breathing digital universe.
And the most crucial game-changing aspect of those alternate reality phases is that the audience themselves became the vulnerable protagonists. The expanding story introduced this terrifying shadow organization called the Moonchildren cult, who were supposedly the ones who sacrificed Ben in the first place and trapped his soul in the internet. Suddenly, fans weren't passively reading anymore. They were actively part of a very dangerous digital hunt. Across these bespoke websites and hidden forums, players had to work together to crack insanely complex ciphers, uncover hidden files, and literally vote on what the fictional characters should do next. The fans' collective choices directly dictated whether characters lived or died, or, as the game called it, whether they were forcibly digitized and absorbed by godlike entities like the Jailer. It became a massive, crowdsourced, choose-your-own-adventure with incredibly high stakes.
3,591,600. That staggering number
is the estimated total word count of just the first 2 arcs of this phenomenon. To put that completely monumental figure into perspective, that is significantly longer than the entire Harry Potter book series several times over. I think that brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the participatory culture surrounding Ben Drowned. This wasn't just a story, it was a sprawling labyrinth of interconnected lore, fully fabricated cult websites, hundreds of obscure YouTube videos, and endless forum roleplay, all of it meticulously managed by Alex Hall and navigated by thousands of totally obsessed fans who were desperately trying to decode the mystery before time ran out.
Section 5. A Haunting Legacy.
So let's look at how this brilliant piece of fiction translates into lasting, real-world impact. Basically, Ben Drowned completely open-sourced the concept of digital horror. It proved, definitively, to a whole generation of creators that you absolutely do not need a massive Hollywood budget or studio backing to terrify people across the globe. You just need a genuinely clever idea, some free emulator software, and an intuitive understanding of internet culture. And the fans? They took Hall's intricate blueprint and ran with it. They built out their own massive expansions to the lore. They analyzed every single corrupted frame of video for hidden messages, and they wrote elaborate spin-offs. It created this fiercely loyal community that essentially crowdsourced the horror experience, building the mythos together in real time.
However, we do have to acknowledge that when a viral phenomenon intentionally blurs the line between reality and fiction this well, there can be very dark, unintended real-world ripples. As documented by the sources, in 2016 a profound real-world tragedy occurred involving the suicide of a 12-year-old girl named Caitlin Davis. This was linked to a user who was inappropriately catfishing her by specifically embodying the Ben persona online. When immersive fiction presents itself as absolute reality so convincingly, it can sometimes attract or influence vulnerable individuals in ways the original creator could never possibly foresee. Hall himself expressed profound public distress over this deeply tragic event, highlighting the heavy moral weight of creating dark, immersive art. It's a somber reminder of the unpredictable ways digital fiction can cascade completely out of the screen and into the real world.
Ultimately, though, the cultural footprint of Ben Drowned is just undeniable. It helped firmly establish creepypasta, these internet-native horror stories, as a totally legitimate, highly influential literary genre of the digital age, standing right alongside massive internet myths like Slender Man. It paved the way for modern, wildly popular analog horror series that use video games as a medium, like the acclaimed Petscop series. Its viral success was so massive that it even attracted serious attention from Hollywood studios and legendary horror creators like Clive Barker. But above all, I think it endured because it wasn't just a simple ghost in a machine. It tapped right into the existential fears of our network society. The fear of lost data, corrupted digital identities, and that quiet, creeping dread that our own technology might one day turn against us.
I want to leave you with a rather chilling thought to ponder tonight. Throughout this explainer, we've seen how Ben Drowned masterfully took a simple gray Nintendo cartridge and turned it into a terrifying metaphor for the human soul, trapped forever in cold, unfeeling code. Now think about our lives today. In our hyper-connected world, we willingly upload our most precious memories, our voices, our images, and our most intimate thoughts to the cloud every single day. We are currently building a massive, eternal digital ghost of ourselves. So if our digital data is a true reflection of who we are, what actually happens to us when our save file is finally deleted? Or, even worse, what happens if it refuses to be erased? Thank you so much for exploring this dark corner of the internet with me. Keep a close eye on your screens, and definitely keep your save files secure.